everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you. We're going to talk some more about Supergirl and do some box office reporting on its opening weekend of release and see what it means going forward for the current DC universe. Now there could very well be spoilers mentioned here, not only for the movie itself but for also all other TV series and movies set within the James Gunn DC universe, so just beware. And you can also check out both my non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of the film, and I'll leave some links within the description. So we'll take a look then at the opening weekend figures covering the period Friday the 26th to Monday the 29th of June this year, and sadly it's not good at all. Within the US domestic territory, the film opened with a total approximately of around 38 to 40 million, coming in at second place behind Toy Story 5, which had an impressive 70 million hold in its second weekend and will shortly become the second or third movie to reach $1 billion worldwide, if or when Michael can eventually crawl over the last hurdles to reach that milestone. Internationally, Supergirl didn't fare much better, earning around just over 27 million for a total global tally of around $68 million. So when we look at all of these numbers then, overall, what does it mean? Well, without playing into the typical hyperbole and negativity, we simply can't deny that this is a disaster, and there's no other way that you can spin it. Even the most positive fan of this movie or the universe cannot come out and say that this is okay or decent. No, this is absolutely a poor showing. And it keeps right in line with the likes of what we saw with the Marvels, Morbius, Blue Beetle, Madam Web and Kraven, amongst other comic book movie disappointments. And it's clearly going to sit alongside Masters of the Universe as one of the biggest flops within this year without question. So when we look at the reasons then, and I think the first and foremost reason is the overall concept and setup was all wrong. Adapting the comic book series from 2021 titled Supergirl Women of Tomorrow, which features a drunken, cynical Supergirl in outer space, and I think overall this was completely the wrong choice. Many fans didn't want yet another deconstruction of a famous, more brighter, hopeful superhero. We've seen it far too often nowadays, and this take would have put off many casual viewers as well as more hardcore fans. The film's look and aesthetic just wasn't that appealing. Ever brown, faded, lacking colour and vibrancy and energy, ironically at odds with what we see within the art featuring within the comic book series itself. And all of this just gave vibes of Guardians of the Galaxy, which people have noted multiple times ever since we saw the first trailers. So it just had this very generic, overfamiliar feeling, and yes, this is very much in the phase of superhero fatigue, I clearly understand that, but Supergirl just didn't offer anything special or any element that truly grabbed your attention and was worthy of your investment. And this just compounded the movie's marketing, which didn't really portray itself as a typical 4-quadrant, all-family accessible summer blockbuster. Who exactly was this movie really for? It was also very ill-advised to open this film between both Toy Story 5 and the upcoming Minions and Monsters, two of which are already going to be guaranteed as the highest grossing films of the year. Those films themselves do have a much more family-friendly, accessible feel to those, so you really don't want to compete those type of movies in any way, shape or form, because 9 times out of 10 you will end up coming off second best. We do then unfortunately have to talk about lead actress Mily Alcock, who during the promotion of this film had several interviews where she spoke first about her experiences during her time filming the HBO fantasy series House of the Dragon, and she spoke in depth about the backlash and perception that female actresses face, and that it comes from a certain space and it feels that sometimes people want to take ownership of female bodies. We had later comments about online trolls and how many of them carry multiple burner accounts. She made references to Christians and also Dad of 4 also. Many comments additionally about Supergirl's potential bisexuality and that the film doesn't necessarily revolve around a man. Now we can debate as to whether anything that she said was wrong, and very much in a general perspective, the mainstream audience really wouldn't care at all about what she commented on. And we did cover this in a previous video, where whilst the general populace doesn't draw attention to such things, the internet communities will easily be triggered, and some of the statements that Mily made, whilst in my opinion weren't really attacking, they certainly were enough to trigger a negative reaction online. And after the previous controversies, again in inverted commas, of the likes of Brie Larson with Captain Marvel and Rachel Zegler with Snow White. I do think that Mily Alcock and her team really should have been far more aware of the type of comments that she was making, fully understanding that they would aggravate a much more negative response. But as the promotion went on, it really seemed that nobody was taking Mily to one side to dial back the comments. She just continued to make them, and they seemed to cause more damage to the film's potential. And whilst this backlash again was majority online, things like this can have a strong impact in terms of your opening box office. Now, yes, I do feel also that there was some deliberate rage baiting here from the studio itself. We all know how this tactic works. They have a look at the first optics of the films in terms of the trailers and social media reaction, and if they feel it's not satisfactory, they will then lure the actor or directors to go into interviews or press junkets and say certain things about race, gender, sexuality or religion or politics, and this will provoke reaction online, and then people will post about it, and this will then get the project to trend on the internet and favour the algorithm. But as we've seen a lot of times recently, that tactic really doesn't work anymore. The one true exception was, of course, with Captain Marvel, but again, that was when Marvel as a cinematic universe was at its absolute zenith in terms of cultural popularity and commerciality. But obviously we are far and away removed from those times now. We then look at Supergirl as a character herself, and while she is a famous character, very well known, very well established, she's not the true A tier level of the likes of Superman, Batman or Spider-Man or Wonder Woman. We ask as to whether Supergirl actually warrants a solo movie costing $170 million, certainly in this climate of superhero fatigue, as I mentioned before. And we could argue as to whether Supergirl should really be at the top of your priorities at this stage, especially when you are trying to forge a new DC cinematic universe. Very much so, you would want to focus on the established characters first, this being of course Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman. Make sure that your iterations of these characters connect with audiences and that you build a certain momentum in terms of successful movies around those characters first. And then once you have an established universe, then you can use other characters such as Green Lantern and Supergirl to then spin off into their own individual projects. And again, we saw this work very well with Marvel in its first couple of phases. I really do think that Supergirl should have came later on down the line, after we had at least 2 Superman movies that proved to be mega successful first, and then we could use those to spin off into Supergirl afterwards. And that's when I have to refer to the first Superman movie from last year and James Gunn's DC universe as a whole. Now, the James Gunn Superman version grossed around $613 million worldwide and incited endless debate as to whether it was actually a success or whether it made profit. But I think we could all agree that it wasn't the big pop cultural blockbuster that Warner Brothers was certainly hoping for. And again, a couple of mega successful Superman movies would have generated far more potential for a Supergirl film to be successful. So I think what should have happened is that they should have looked at the fallout from the upcoming Man of Tomorrow Superman sequel first, see how well that performed before deciding to go with a solo Supergirl film instead. The mere fact that we are still debating as to whether Superman was a success kind of makes its own statement. And where does this leave really now James Gunn's DC in terms of his first chapter titled Gods and Monsters? And I think the statement is simple. If it was super successful, all conquering and super proficient, then Supergirl would have opened to far bigger numbers. I'm not saying it would have opened to around $200 million, but certainly would have opened far more than $38 million, particularly in the US markets. We mentioned the MCU once more, where we had smaller characters such as Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther and Captain Marvel, and they were all successful because the franchise was successful first. But we aren't really seeing that with this James Gunn universe. Superman, in my personal opinion, underperformed. We had negative receptions to Peacemaker Season 2 and Creature Commandos. We've had less than enthusiastic responses to the upcoming Lantern series, and we are nowhere near closer to getting any further iteration of Wonder Woman. There has been rumours and almost confirmations that actress Arjun Ajoa will be playing Wonder Woman in the upcoming Man of Tomorrow, but in terms of a solo project for the character, it really is up in the air at the moment. So when we look at all of these, we factor in the case, and we have to make the statement that the James Gunn DC era is simply not working. It's not connecting the way that they were hoping for. It's creating, for the most part, a very divisive response with every continuing entry, and that just doesn't bode well going forward for the future. And again, I think that was a major reason as to why Supergirl underperformed massively. So when we look at this overall then, how much will the film end up making? Well, at this stage, especially with the negative reception, I think it will be very lucky to get anywhere near $200 million. As I mentioned, it's going to be between this and He-Man as to what will be the biggest flop of the year. It may not even hit $100 million because, again, of the ongoing competition. And don't forget, in 2 to 3 weeks' time, we've got Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, and shortly after that, we'll have also Spider-Man Brand New Day. So there really isn't a lot of wiggle room in terms of Supergirl to generate any type of legs going forward to try and struggle its way to make some sort of profit. I don't think that's going to happen. And unfortunately, it's yet again another bad misstep and mistake within the James Gunn DC universe. So those are my thoughts and feelings when talking about the box office opening figures for Supergirl. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics with the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover within the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I'll see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.